Santa Barbara's water system dates back to 1803 when the first dam was built to serve the mission. The original structures were fairly simple, but useful up through the 1960s. Santa Barbara's current system supports a much larger population, so it is naturally much more complex than it used to be. Local lake and groundwater is combined with state water through 2 tunnels, 1 conduit, 3 treatment plants, and 13 reservoirs, all so that Santa Barbara residents get high-quality water in the most cost-efficient way possible.
In contrast, you have the city of Santa Barbara, which has a very diverse topography. We have the flatlands where we're down at sea level up into the Riviera area and through Mission Canyon, where it's much more mountainous with the canyons. The elevations of the city vary from sea level down at the waterfront up to close to 1,400 feet up in our highest points. And to manage that from a water aspect is very difficult.
The complexity of the water system is not only due to diverse topography. The system also serves 5 different water districts: Santa Barbara, Goleta, Carpinteria Valley, Montecito, and Santa Ynez. Each district takes care of its own distribution, but to make things easy, one joint powers agency is in charge of distribution to the South Coast as a whole.
Most of our water comes from the Santa Ynez River through the Cachuma project, and the South Coast agencies are supplied through the South Coast Conduit, which is a big water pipeline of untreated water. And we are part of a joint powers authority called Cachuma Operations Maintenance Board, which is charged with maintaining that infrastructure.
The Cachuma project includes Lake Cachuma and Bradbury Dam, but then there's a tunnel that comes through the mountains, the Tecolote Tunnel, that delivers water from Lake Cachuma to a long pipeline called the South Coast Conduit. And that begins in the Goleta area in Glen Annie Canyon, where it comes out of the mountain on this side and goes from Goleta all the way to Carpinteria. And along the pipeline there are over 200 structures, different air vents and blow-off valves, and 4 balancing reservoirs. And COM is an operations agency that maintains all of those facilities for the delivery of the water all along the South Coast.
The benefit of an overarching maintenance board is that each water district only has to worry about its own system, and not about the larger system that it shares with other districts. This makes maintenance of the shared infrastructure, the South Coast Conduit, easier and more cost-efficient. But what is there to maintain?
We have staff dedicated to maintaining our facilities. Each pump station has many pumps and motors and electronics that helps open the valves and maintain the pressure throughout the city. We have backup generators in case there is a power outage. And these systems also support our fire suppression or our fire hydrants. The city has 2,500 fire hydrants throughout the city, and we have a program that's dedicated to maintaining those fire hydrants.
We have plenty of water in there. There's a gravity feed that the tankers can fill up, or the fire trucks can fill up with that here and elsewhere in the system on the gravity line and or the hydrozone line.
The city has a couple of different goals in maintaining its water infrastructure. A lot of the water infrastructure maintenance we do to keep the system functioning properly, but we also want to do infrastructure maintenance before things break, because if you wait until they break, it's more costly to replace the infrastructure. And then also some of our infrastructure projects are driven by regulations, changing regulations that increase the level of treatment that are required, or things that cause us to do infrastructure projects, so we'll be in compliance with those regulations.
Water that travels through the South Coast Conduit is temporarily stored in reservoirs, like the Laurel Reservoir.
This is a raw water reservoir. From here, the water then is piped into Cater Water Treatment Plant, which is just a block over, and all of the water then is treated and filtered. It's a filtration plant, so that finished water goes back into the pipeline and is then delivered to the city and to Montecito and to Carpinteria. Goleta Water District has a separate water treatment plant, and the water comes off the conduit for Goleta, and they too treat the water before it goes into their own distribution system.
The vast majority of water supplied to the South Coast comes from local sources. The advantages of supplying predominantly local water become apparent in the way it gets delivered.
One advantage to having our own local water supply is that it's close by. We have been able to design and build the system so that it's all by gravity flow, so there are no energy costs involved with delivering the water, which is really unusual. Most of the time there's quite high costs involved with pumping water. We don't have that. Within the city's own distribution system, there are many pump stations because of the different elevation differences, but for Kachuma water, it's all gravity fed, so that's a real bonus.
Water that comes from Lake Kachuma travels through the Tecolote Tunnel and the South Coast Conduit. Another source is the Gibraltar Reservoir, which supplies water to the South Coast through the Mission Tunnel.
Lake Kachuma collects floodwater that would otherwise go to the ocean. That water is diverted then through the Tecolote Tunnel, which is about 6.5 miles long. It's a 10-foot diameter tunnel, and that tunnel then is connected to the South Coast Conduit. The conduit is a big pipeline. It's all buried, and it starts in the Goleta, Glen Annie Canyon area, and it starts off as a 4-foot pipeline, 48 inches, and as it goes from Goleta all the way to Carpinteria, it reduces from 48-inch to 36 inches to 30 inches, and finally 27-inch pipeline when you get down to Carpinteria.
After the water is purified, it is distributed throughout the city via a complex water grid.
Most of our system is probably in the 50 years or younger age, although we do have system infrastructure that dates back to the 1800s, but most of that has been replaced.
The pipes that we've put in the ground in the 1950s are generally our worst performing pipe. And we target those for replacement, and we're replacing them with either ductile iron in our more mountainous and high pressure areas or PVC plastic pipe.
Currently, there are 2 major projects in the works. One is called Win the City, where the plan is to replace 1% of all water mains and wastewater mains in the city every year.
So we try to get to the mains that are most likely to fail ahead of them failing. And when I say fail, that's a water main break that disrupts service to the neighborhood and requires the people to come out on an emergency basis to repair the main and sometimes the street. So we do that on an ongoing basis, and we try and get about 1% of the system a year so that we'll get the whole system in a 100-year cycle. And that's roughly coincident with the life cycle of the pipes.
The second project is a major capital program to meet regulatory requirements called the Cater Advanced Treatment Program.
The Cater Advanced Treatment Project, which involves changing slightly the way that we treat water at Cater to better remove compounds that will react with chlorine and create disinfection byproducts, which can be potentially carcinogenic.
Fortunately, the only change in water taste is expected to be slight and for the better.
The customer probably won't notice anything, although there is an opportunity for slightly improved taste and odor. So water quality may improve in terms of the way the customer believes it tastes. But mostly the customer probably won't notice anything.
As for the rest of our water supply, there are a number of sources. One important supplemental water source is groundwater. Groundwater averages about 7.6% of the city's total water supply. Another possible source of water comes from Santa Barbara's desalination plant, which was built after a series of droughts in the 80s in order to make seawater potable. However, due to the high cost of running the plant, the facility has long since been mothballed. Once all this water is used, wastewater is transported, treated, and tested at El Estero or other wastewater facilities so that some can be reused. That recycled water is used as irrigation for landscaping in parks, the zoo, and other local facilities. Santa Barbara's diverse water portfolio and complex infrastructure help buffer our supply during drought and ensure that citizens of Santa Barbara have clean and refreshing water flowing from their taps.
To learn more about our water infrastructure, you can visit santabarbaraca.gov/water.